Hello and welcome to The Student Space, a podcast for students about high school, life after school, and how to actually be an adult. In this episode, I chat with Milena, who is a graduate nurse. We discuss her studying a Bachelor of Nursing at ACU, best subject choices to pick in high school, and all about her placement experience. Enjoy! Before we jump into the chat, I want to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording this podcast and pay my respects to the elders past and present of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. Alrighty, welcome to the Student Space, Milena. Before we talk about your Bachelor of Nursing at ACU, I wanted to get into 3 before the degree, and I ask everyone this, so just 3 random questions before we talk about the degree.
Awesome.
So the first one is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I actually wanted to be a teacher. So when I have a younger brother, and during the school holidays, we'd actually have I'd set up a classroom and everything. So poor kid, he had to do extra schoolwork
on the holidays.
Yeah, I know. So it's funny. Even once had his friend come over and I was like, let's do a school day. And yeah.
That's so funny. I love it. And then what was the last book that you read?
Well, I'm currently reading American Dirt, and it's a bit, I've heard it's a bit controversial because it's not actually from, it's about these Mexican people trying to cross the border into America.
Oh.
But because it's written from a perspective of a white person, it's not very culturally.
Giving voice to the right people.
Yeah, so I only found that out after I bought the book. So yeah, I'm going to read about all the controversy after.
Love it.
It was interesting.
And my last question is, what was your favourite subject at school and why?
I loved HHD, so Health and Human Development. So that's obviously very relevant to my job now as a nurse. So I really enjoy learning about the various diseases and the risk factors and sort of promoting health promotion, which is a big component of the subject. So yeah, I love that. I wasn't really studying at all.
Love it. And let's reflect back to your high school days. I know you did touch on HHD. Mm-hmm. Did you do that as in year 11 as a 3-4?
Yeah, I did. So that was my subject in year 11 as a 3-4. I really liked it because you were able to focus a lot more of your time on that subject, and I think that's why I sort of did so well in it, because you sort of prioritized that one, and all the teachers sort of are aware of that, and they want you to prioritize your 3-4 over your 1-2s. So I really enjoyed that, and many of the students were encouraged to do 3-4s subjects in year 11. So in year 12 I did English, further maths, bio, business management, and food studies.
Interesting. So while in high school, what were your aspirations for after uni? You said you always wanted to be a teacher. Was teaching one of your preferences?
Looking back at it now, I think maybe somewhere down the bottom, but I quickly, sort of scrapped that, and I was really focusing on, I thought about being a nutritionist because I did chemistry in year 11 and then I dropped it. So to go into dietetics, you needed to do 3-4 chemistry, so I sort of couldn't get into that.
Yep.
So I did have nutrition down, sort of hoping to then complete that and then go on and do dietetics. But yeah, nursing was always at the top. Because I went to some open days and they told me how competitive getting a job in the nutrition field is, and I just thought, oh my gosh.
So that put you off?
I was like, nah, I don't want to fight for a job, basically, and I wasn't super, super passionate about it. I just was like, oh yeah, I like cooking and food and, all those things. I didn't think I really, really want to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so what were your preferences?
So I had nursing at ACU at the top because ACU, is so well spoken for nursing. It's very highly regarded. So I remember when I actually was applying, the ATAR was 84 or 85 for nursing, which is really high compared to other unis. So I thought I'll just put that there and just hope for the best. And then I had nursing at Deakin as well, and then La Trobe, I think. And then I also had some other mixed match courses.
Some other random ones just to see how you go.
Yeah, fill it up. But I was definitely hoping for ACU or Deakin for nursing.
Lovely. And so you really wanted to go to ACU to do nursing. What inspired you to choose that course? And I know you mentioned that ACU was renowned for the nursing program. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I basically chose nursing, based on the reputation. I didn't even go to an open day there.
Really?
Yeah, so that was the one uni that I didn't even go to an open day.
So you went to all the other ones?
Yeah, I went to Deakin, did a La Trobe experience day where I fainted in the nursing labs.
Really?
Yeah, it was so hot in there and we were all cramped together in winter with all jackets on, and I just fainted. It was so funny. Everyone's like, oh, you're in the right place to faint because we're in the nursing labs. But yeah, so I chose there just because of location as well, because ACU is in Fitzroy in the city, or you can go to Ballarat as well. They offer nursing. I just thought I'd rather get the train into the city than drive to Deakin. And I thought, yeah, why not? I just thought it'd be an interesting experience, which it was. It was really good.
Excellent. And then what about prerequisites for this course for nursing being your number one preference?
So I think it was just English. I think it was just 25 study score in English. You only needed English.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Had you not gotten into ACU, would you say you were fussed if you had gotten your second preference?
No, not at all. I actually sometimes think about Deakin because I had lots of friends that went there and they had a really good experience, and then I thought, they have lots of collaborations, which I'll talk about a bit later, with certain hospitals that I obviously live in the eastern suburbs, so that's close to Deakin, whereas ACU is in the city and it's close to the western northern suburbs. So I feel like maybe if I went to Deakin, I could have gotten a better experience hospital placement wise. That's the only thing. And then I also think about La Trobe because they also are connected to other awesome hospitals. So, yeah, I don't think in the moment I was so fixated on getting ACU just because of the reputation. But at the end of the day, you still all come out as great nurses. And I now work with, lots of nurses from all different unis. And it's not like you can tell they went to a different uni and they're a bad nurse or something. ATARs don't mean anything. It's all the effort that you put in and the skills you learn on placement and how much you're willing to put in. So I think regardless of which uni you go to, and even if you do a diploma first and go to TAFE and then go on to do your bachelor, it doesn't change the type of nurse you're going to end up as.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Preach. I'd love to hear that, especially for students who are in Year 12 and are so worried about hitting a particular mark to get a course, no matter where you do it. And like you said, even if you do the TAFE course first and then go into bachelor, you will still end up with the same qualification.
100%. And I actually noticed them so much more, the ones that were ENs first, and then so they even have worked as a nurse and now they're doing their grad year with me, and here I am stressing about things and they're cruising. They're oh, nah, I'm fine. And I'm oh, are you serious? Obviously they've got that extra experience, but I think, if you're feeling less confident than doing the EN, which is enrolled nursing at TAFE, and then going on to do your RN is just as good. It takes a little bit longer, but you end up with so many more skills and life experience being able to work and having more placement opportunities. So, yeah, I think it doesn't really matter where you really go at the end of the day because it's all based on how much you put in and how much you try.
Absolutely. And it's great for the listeners to hear that as well. It just gives you more options.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever consider taking a gap year?
So I sort of thought about it, but more as a joke with my parents, because my parents were so you should go to uni straight away.
Yep.
So I said, oh, maybe I'm going to take a gap year. And they're no, you have to go. But I don't think this was in a controlling, pushy way. But I think because I've always been sort of a driven individual during high school. So I think my parents just thought that I'm obviously capable and I already know what I want to pursue. I'm not wasn't iffy. I knew that I wanted to do nursing and I never once thought, no, I don't want to be a nurse, if that makes sense, when I was studying and everything. So I think that it was better for me just to go straight into it and, get the 3 years over and done with because, yeah, with nursing, everything you sort of learn in class, all the bio, everything I use every day in my job.
That is so good to know. I was actually going to ask you this later.
Yeah, because so many courses, you do a course and I obviously don't know because I've only done nursing, but I feel like they don't even relate to the job necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, I did commerce and I'm learning
these microeconomic theories and macro theories. And I'm like, hang on, how am I going to use this in real life?
Literally, I know. And so I feel like I have to sort of be present and follow through those 3 years. Like even I thought, oh, should I go on a Europe trip, you know, in the middle of a course, which some people do. But I personally think that it would just like make you go back to step one, because you need to remember all like the pathophysiology of like diabetes and hypertension and everything, which like I have to think about every day when I'm caring for my patients with those conditions, and, you know, remembering what medications are. It's just so hard if you sort of take a pause on it, if that makes sense. So I think with nursing, it's sort of that degree that it's better to just get it over and done with, if that makes sense. But I obviously know people that have taken a pause on it and, you know, they're doing just as well as me. But I think for me, I would have just been like taken back, and I would have been like, oh, I can't do this, you know?
Yeah, good to like be consistent with it.
Yeah, I agree. So it's good.
Lovely. And let's now chat about the first year of uni. So you transitioned from high school to now be a uni student. You know, you're fully an adult, you're a bit more independent. What was that process like?
So, yeah, it was really, it was a bit hard. I got the train to and from school during high school anyway, so it wasn't like hard for me, you know, having to get up early and getting the train to class and sort of being in that city environment, because I was sort of used to that already.
Yep.
But I suppose that would be a bit daunting for some people if, you know, they get driven to school or walk to school and things like that. And especially going into the city, you know, you see like homeless people around the stations and everything. So like things like that, maybe when you're like younger, you're not really aware of those things. So yeah, it's definitely, you grow up a lot during that transition from high school to university. But I think it was really good, and I was able to go to uni with 2 friends from high school, but they later dropped out of their courses. So in the end, I was the last one standing.
Did they do nursing?
One of them did midwifery.
Yep.
And then the other one did nursing business. So it's business administration, I think. So it's a lower ATAR score, and it sort of allows you to get into nursing, and then it's 4 years, but it's sort of more of a pathway course, if that makes sense. So that's also a really good course. I don't know how much the business really helps with nursing, but you know, you'll learn things, and if you want to go into management in the future, then that will be helpful. But no one's ever going to come out of university and go straight into a management role as a nurse, you know?
Of course. Just a side question. Yeah. Did you ever consider midwifery?
Not really. I think it scares me.
Really?
Catching babies. One of my best friends that I actually met at uni, we did because they do mixed classes with health science students. So she was in my group project, and she's now my best friend actually. So that's cool. But she's really a midwife, and I just think, oh my gosh, no, I couldn't like catch babies and do all those things. And it's a lot. Maybe in the future, but I think I'm more passionate about adult nursing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What was the workload like in your first year, and then how many contact hours were you at uni?
So I think in the first year I went to uni maybe 2 to 3 days a week, but that's because my timetable was horrible. You know, I had like 2 classes on each of the days. So really you can, you know, do 1 or 2 days. It really is dependent on how your timetable is structured. I think it wasn't necessarily hard, the contact hours. You did have to do a lot of outside work.
Like what do you mean? Oh, like homework?
Yeah, like readings and like reading textbooks and researching things. And like there's lots of assignments, usually about 2 to 3 per subject, and maybe a test or an exam or something. So the workload I didn't find it difficult, but that's because in high school I feel like it was sort of the same. The essays are definitely just so weird. Like I think they're hard.
Do you write essays in nursing?
Yeah, it's so strange. And even like literature reviews and everything, it was so bizarre. I was like, wow. I only did a few tests like for biology and such, and like I did a few exams for certain subjects, but heaps of essays, and I can't even tell you what they're about. They were just so strange. Like you have to research academic literature and sort of like pick on those things. I'm glad it's all over.
Wow, that's actually really interesting to note, because I totally understand academic essays for, you know, arts, history, humanities type of degrees, but for nursing, I feel like it'd be more about the body and
Yeah.
anatomy, physiology, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, when I started. But I feel like we had a Facebook group, if that makes sense, with all the, first year, second years, we all moved up together. And, like, that was, like, our savior. Like, we would ask questions like, what's this essay actually, like, want us to do? Like, what are we writing about? And we'd all help each other, not sharing, the essays. But it was so helpful because I think if I didn't have those supports or even the friends I made through, like, group assignments, I have the group chat and we consistently spoke in it all the time about subjects, and I think that's what helps so much with these courses because it's just too hard to do it on your own.
Absolutely. And so let's think back to high school. Any of the subjects that you did in high school relate directly to what you did at uni? For example, HHD, did that carry over?
Yes, definitely. Like, because we learn about certain diseases and their risk factors and things, and like there was a sort of a basic understanding of how those diseases come about, like what happens. So I feel like when I went into it, similarly with bio, I already had a really good base so that I did really well in those subjects because what I was learning was just revision. And so
That's perfect.
It's like the second time I was learning things and I'm like, oh, I actually get it now because previously, like I remember, in year 11 and 12, bio wasn't my strongest.
And you probably just wrote learning just to get a good mark on the exam. So you're not understanding, you're just memorizing.
Yeah, and so much of it is so relatable because when you go out on placement, like you understand, you're like, oh, of course, that makes sense. Like, of course, when they're smoking, this is what they end up like, so you can really connect things with like nursing, like when you're learning something in the textbook or reading about it and then you see like the patient, or in bio class, we dissect sort of certain organs and things, and it would all make sense, cutting open a kidney and then I'm like, oh wow, like that's where, all the things are, it really made so much more sense. So yeah, definitely HHD was similar. Even food studies had some key information, but I think bio would have been the most helpful subject.
Good advice for anyone listening. If they're in year 10 and they're choosing subjects and you're thinking about doing nursing, bio, HHD, and what was the other one? Food study.
Yeah, that was a good fun subject. And even I didn't do PE. That sort of would have been my do-over maybe subject. But I remember in PE, like I knew that it would help me. Like I was aware, but I just thought, nah, I can't be bothered learning about, like, I just thought like all the heart and like I'd already learnt that, but I just thought, nah, I can't be bothered learning about aerobic, anaerobic respiration and all that stuff. Even though I knew that it would help me later, I just was like, nah, I can't be bothered doing that now. So although I would, probably like to do that, I think business was sort of it was like totally unrelatable to my other subjects because all my others were sort of health sciencey ones. But I think that was like one of my favorite classes because all my friends were in it and it was such straightforward like content. Like, you learn it and then you write, you test about it. So I don't know. I feel like when you're picking subjects, choose ones that are going to help you, but also pick ones that you're going to enjoy and you think you're going to do well in, because I did well in business and maybe I wouldn't have done the same in PE,
Exactly. And at the end of the day, don't stress if you say haven't done bio or health and you do nursing because you all learn it in the first year again anyway. Yeah. So like you said, pick subjects that you like, that you enjoy and that you actually want to learn because then it'll make it so much easier.
100%. Like, and going back to sort of when I was in year 11, I dropped my chemistry because I found it so difficult and I just knew that I wasn't interested in it because I was finding it so difficult and I just couldn't wrap my head around it no matter like how much I was studying for it. So I knew that I had to basically drop it, otherwise it's going to just let me down, even though it's a scale up subject, So I dropped that to do like revolutions, history, because my mum was like, oh, learn about some of your Russian heritage. And I was like, maybe, Mum. So then I studied over the summer and I was like memorizing all the dates of all these significant events. And then first week back, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Like I just didn't enjoy it. So that's when I actually picked up the food studies, like in the first week of year 12.
Wow.
Didn't do it in year 11. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Even though it's a subject that they say scales down.
Doesn't matter.
No, I just did it. I enjoyed it. Like we did cooking in classes and like we learn about interesting things about, you know, if you're interested in nutrition, that's obviously like so much information, but all about food and everything. And that actually ended up being my best subject with 46.
Wow, there you go.
Study score. Yeah, and, you know, I nearly didn't pick it because I was so focused on, you know, chemistry can scale up and, you know, that could be better, or, you know, maybe I should do this because like my mum says I should do it. But I think you should do what you want because you're going to do better in a subject you're interested in.
Absolutely. That's a great story and great piece of advice for anyone listening. Definitely do what you're passionate in. And look, you got a 46, which otherwise you might have not gotten that in chemistry.
No. And just, you know, I know a girl that chose to do chemistry because she thought it would scale up. But, you know, in the nicest way, if you do bad in it, it's not going to scale up.
No, it's not going to scale up 20.
No. So I thought, no, that's not going to be me. I'm going to enjoy myself, you know, not have to. Like even I did methods in year 10, like that pre-methods, and I think I did half of methods in year 11. But it was just so difficult. I just thought, once again, maybe I'm not trying hard enough. I was like, I'd rather do like good in subjects that I find not easy, but
enjoyable.
Yeah, that they're good, and I'm not going to not want to study for it, if that makes sense, you know?
Absolutely. Talk to me about maths, and if any maths related from year 12 to your course. Let's say if someone didn't do maths at all, would they struggle, or do you think they would be fine?
Like obviously people would be doing maths from like year 7 up until, is it year 10?
Year 10,
and then you can drop it. So in nursing, like I'm going to be honest, like there's a lot of maths because when you're doing drug calculations, you know, like obviously for tablets, you know, you read like this one's 30 milligrams and we need 30 milligrams, so it's one tablet.
Yep.
But then when it gets a bit more complex with especially like if you want to do pediatrics, that's like crazy. It's all based on weight, on the child's weight, and then that's how you do it. So that's very complex, but you can get your head around it. But there is maths in nursing at the end of the day, but it's very basic maths. And, you know, at uni, some people struggled, and there are supports available. There's like basic maths, not courses, but I think it's through the library. You can
like
just
sessions
contact.
you can go to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and, you know, we do have to do regular maths tests at uni. Sort of, they're all drug calculations, so it's not like other random
Not
maths.
like algebra, calculus.
No,
None
no,
of that
no,
fun
no.
stuff.
No, it's all just, you know, calculations, and you do have to get 100% on it to pass, and you do get 3 chances most time, and if, you know, you don't get the third one, that's when you sort of access the maths help. And I don't know anyone that failed nursing because of missing maths calculations. Like there's always the support available, and but that's something to be aware of.
That's really good to know about the support, because a lot of people go to uni and feel like they're alone or they're by themselves, and if they're struggling, like they have no idea where to get help. You know how you said there was maths help? Is there help for other subjects? Like let's say you're struggling in the first year, like anatomy subject or the bio subject.
Yeah, so at ACU, I can't remember what it was called, but it's like a study session that's actually run by a student that did the subject like last year or the year before, but they're still studying, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So they're not there to tutor you and teach you. They're there to sort of like, it's a group of like 10, 20 students, and you come together and you sort of discuss topics yourselves. Like they're not there to teach you because they're not a teacher, but it really helps. Like they're obviously smart and did well in the subject, so they do know what's going on, and they're there to ask questions, and it's more of a support thing with other students. So I did go to a few sessions for bio in that. I know some other subjects have it for other things, but there wasn't many for nursing. There's also support for writing essays.
Oh, good to know, especially all those crazy ones that you had
to
write.
So I've accessed them multiple times, and it's funny, like I think back to my very first essay, and I did it like no wonder, like I failed it. I got 40 something on my first uni thing.
And that would have been hard coming from school where you would have been a really hard worker and done really well.
I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like for my Indigenous subject, like for Indigenous Aboriginal subject and all the cultural things.
Yep.
So I thought I did well on that. All it was like reflecting on like misconceptions and things like that. So it wasn't even like, I was like, how did I do bad? But my formatting was all wrong. Didn't do right, you know, references.
There you go.
Like used the wrong text. Like everything was just wrong, you know, with the setup. But I'm sure like the actual content would have been okay, would have gotten me over the line. But yeah, you have to be aware of like whether you're using APA or, you know, I don't know what the other ones are.
Harvard, Chicago. There's so many different ones.
Yeah, so definitely be aware of that. But there are support available to guide you through that.
And that's the main thing. not to stress, really. If you are struggling, just speak out. Someone will definitely help you.
Yeah. And it's okay if you fail your first uni subject.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not subject. First
Assignment.
Assessment. Yeah. I
Assessment.
still passed the subject and I passed nursing. So it's not the end of the world. But I thought it was the end of the world. You know, I was like, so I was emailing them, asking them, please just bump it up to a 50. Like, let me pass. And they're like, okay. So I think I was like 46, 48%. Like I was just under. But I was so like heartbroken. I thought I'd failed everything. But it's an overall,
Of course.
mark that is at the end. But
Yeah. There you go. That's what all first year uni students think. They think, oh my goodness, I failed one thing. Do I fail my course? Well, no. It's actually really common for people to not only fail assignments, but subjects in total. And you can repeat them multiple times.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that apart from adding to your HECS, which I think is the only negative. But apart from that, you go back and you already know basic things of the subject, and then you're just able to, you know, get better at it.
Give
and
it
you
another
most
shot.
likely will do it even better the second time.
Absolutely. So now tell me about the structure of the course. Did you have seminars, tutorials, lectures? How did that structure work?
Yeah, so we had tutorials, which is basically like your classic class with about like 25 students and one teacher, where they teach you like content, and it's like an open sort of discussion and things like that. And you're able to ask questions about like, you know, assignments that's coming up and things like that. Then we had lectures, which is just when the lecturer basically talks at you the whole time and there's really any opportunity to stop and ask for any questions because they've got that time slot and they need to go at it. I remember the bio ones, they wouldn't stop talking. It was so difficult. Like I'd have to rewatch the lectures. Like there was no time to stop or anything. So,
And this is pre-COVID where you'd physically go in and sit and listen.
I know, it's hard. So yeah, I ended up just not going to any lectures and then would just listen at home because you can pause and then you can rewind. And
take some
go over.
notes.
Yeah, so that's much easier. And then we also had practical classes for bio, which was in like science labs, and that's where we, you know, dissected all those delicious things. And also our nursing practical classes, which is basically like a hospital simulation room, and we've got like, I guess they're sort of robotic patients. They like look like real people, and you know you can check their heart rate and their blood pressure and things like that. So that was probably the coolest class because you get to actually
Hands-on
do
experience.
nursing. Yeah, so I love that. And I wish that was sort of more of that. But that's usually about a 2-3 hour class per week.
Okay.
So every week you learn a different sort of skill and sort of build on it each week. So yeah, that was cool.
It's nice you get a full range of experience. Lectures, seminars, and then you're hands-on in the simulated.
Yeah, 100%. And they all sort of interrelate. That's how they try and structure the, you know, units. So each semester they'll try and relate. So you'll do like a medical subject and like surgical. So when doing medical, they'll try, that's separate to your prac class. Like that's a different subject.
Yep.
But they'll try and, you know, use information that you've learned in that medical subject and then act on it in the practical subject. So that was helpful.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And were there any fun electives you could pick outside of nursing? So I am assuming that there is a lot that you need to learn to prepare you for your job, but was anything like fun that you could pick?
No, it's
Really?
so sad. Yeah, I don't know if I just didn't know about it, but I don't think so. None of my friends, it's all structured. You have to do all these courses, all these subjects. You can't choose anything. Yeah, so it's hard. And at ACU, because it's also a Catholic university, one thing to sort of be aware of is that you actually do have to do a compulsory subject, and it's called UNCC. I'm not sure what it stands for.
That's fine.
But I did 2 of these subjects. So there was UNCC 100 and UNCC 300. So it's not actually like religious based, but it does sort of follow sort of religious morals. Like it's all about being like good people and doing good for the world. And, you know, you look at like organizations and, you know, I remember I did a poster about like a water organization in like Africa or something. You know, it's not about writing essays about how good God is or anything. You know, it's not. So you shouldn't be turned away about that. But yeah, it's quite an easy subject, if that makes sense. You know, you can sort of, you can call it sort of your blood subject in that sort of thing. So there's not many assignments for it. So it's only 1 class a week, no lectures for it. So it's very straightforward in that sense. And you can even do it during your winter or summer breaks. So I did that. And then I only had to do 3 subjects during one semester, which was so helpful.
Perfect. It's a nice way to underload as well.
100%, yeah.
And what about any opportunities to travel in your course? Now, I understand this is pre-COVID, but any experiences abroad?
Yeah, so ACU does have opportunities abroad, which is really cool. So with the UNCC subject, you can actually go to Rome and like do the subject. So I had like some friends that went there, and I think it's about a couple of weeks, and then they just did a bit of a Europe trip.
Holiday.
So good. So that's fun. It's obviously expensive, and I thought, oh, no, I won't bother. But there was other ones that are actually related to placement that you could actually do overseas. So there was opportunities to go to like North Carolina, Miami, and even Chile. So these ones were quite expensive because you're obviously traveling a fair distance, like flight-wise. And yeah, I had friends that went to the Miami one, and they like worked in like hospitals in America, and even like went to like a university, I think, and did a class there or something. So that was really, really cool. But yeah, it was around 8,000, I think. So that's why I didn't apply. I think you can add it to your HECS debt. So if you really wanted the opportunity but you don't have the money for it, you can go for it. But I thought I won't bother. But there are some other ones that were actually closer to home, so they were a bit more, affordable. So there was ones to India. My friends went to Cambodia, Vanuatu, and East Timor. So I was actually meant to go to Vanuatu last year for a placement, but obviously COVID happened.
No.
And I was actually devastated. I think back to the day I remember I was at work, and this was the day that COVID was like becoming real. We were learning that we could go into lockdown, like things can change. Before that we lived in this, bliss that like nothing's going to change with life.
Exactly.
And one by one things just start coming. We're like, okay, no, they're closing international things. And I was like, oh my God, Vanuatu, I'm meant to go in like 2 months. And I hadn't paid for anything, luckily, but yeah, it was just, everything just hit me, and I was just so upset because I was meant to go to, Vanuatu. I can't remember which particular spot because there was 2 trips, and I was going to work in a health clinic sort of thing and go to a hospital, and I think I was going to be working with other Australian nurses and doctors that actually permanently work there. So that would have been amazing, and my friends went to Cambodia in January just before COVID hit.
Oh, that's so lucky.
Yeah, and they had the best time of their lives. Like they went for, I think, 2 weeks, and they did some cultural things as well, like day trips on things, and they learnt so much, and I think that has helped them so much as well with perspective on the whole health system and everything, and just good life experience for, applying for jobs, and just in general would have been an amazing experience. So I am gutted, but hopefully in the future, when hopefully COVID's not a word anymore, we can all go on trips overseas and do, volunteer work and things like that. So it would have been great.
Absolutely. And it's good to know that ACU does provide so many different opportunities. Like going to Rome, you could go somewhere in America or to Chile. You could go India, Cambodia, Vanuatu. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So different options, again, for different budgets as well. It's something to look forward to in the future when we can travel.
Yeah, I hope so. I do know other unis also offer similar things. I think Deakin, you can go to the Philippines and things like that. Obviously, I don't know heaps about it because I didn't go there, but that was a big focus when I went to the Deakin Open Day. They did talk about their international opportunities. So, I think just research all the different unis and see what they have to offer, and even call them up because there's so much that you're not sort of aware of until you get started. Like I didn't even know ACU had any of these trips really until, second year when they send the email out saying, do you want to go somewhere here? And I'm like, oh.
It's good. And it's good that if you're listening and you're a high school student and you're making a decision where to go, find out what cool opportunities you can do, because that will make or break your uni experience.
100%. And even for like other degrees, like I know people that have gone on exchanges and things and actually done a couple of subjects and things overseas for like 6 months. And I think there's not many of those for nursing, but for other degrees, it's cool.
Awesome. And I know a huge part of your degree and all nursing degrees require placement. So what was the requirements during uni, let's say in your first year, your second, or how it progressed?
Yep. So placement is just one of the biggest parts of the nursing degree. And I think this is actually where you learn most of your skills, because this is like, yeah, in the practical classes at uni in a simulation lab, you learn things, but you know, your patient's not talking back at you. It's not a real life situation where things are changing. You know, it's all structured. So you learn so much on placement. So I did 840 hours of unpaid placement over the course of 3 years.
Oh my goodness, that is a lot.
It is a lot. And it's like one little side story, but during COVID last year, I was doing placement and I just finished like a afternoon shift. So it was like 9:30 and I just really wanted a hot chocolate. And this is when they were doing those free drinks at Macca's for healthcare workers. So I went to the Macca's and I asked for a small hot chocolate and they said no because I'm not a real nurse. I was so upset because I was like, but I'm working for free during COVID. Like, I'm going there. I was like, the nurses are still getting paid. Like, they don't really need all these free drinks. And she was like, oh, sorry, you're not a real nurse. And I was so upset.
Terrible.
Yeah. So anyway, just got to push through the unpaid work and you'll be rewarded later when you get your first paycheck. But yeah, each university is different regarding like when they send the students on placement. But specifically at ACU, I did a placement at the end of my first year, which was aged care. Most people did aged care or maybe rehab. My friend was so lucky. She got like a cardiology ward and never did any aged care placement.
Oh.
But yeah, it just really is dependent. So yeah, aged care, you can't really do much. Like I couldn't give medications and obviously because they're not in a hospital environment, they're not acutely unwell. So it's just basically learning all your basic communication skills and, you know, how to build relationships with staff, you know, patients and lots of, you know, taking care of them, like showering, dressing, toileting, feeding, things like that. All your basic nursing skills that you really need, you know, under the belt before you go on and do all those exciting things. So after that, in second year, I did a placement in the first semester, which is my mental health placement. So I was in an adult inpatient psychiatric ward, which was really, really eye-opening. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, so it was for 4 weeks and it's a completely different type of nursing. You know, I'm not really doing the things that I do now on a general ward, but it was a really good experience. And, you know, if you don't know what type of nursing you want to do, it's a great way to see what mental health nursing's like. And, you know, I feel like in Australia there's going to be a big need for more mental health nurses with everything. So I did enjoy that. And then at the end of my second year, I went on another placement. So I went to a general medical ward for 2 weeks. And then I also went to an intensive care unit for 1 week and a coronary care unit for 1 week. So all up, it was also another 4 weeks. So that was also really cool. It was the first time that I was sort of at a hospital and it was, you know, the end of my second year, you know. So yeah, that's when you learnt heaps of things, you know, all about, you know, time management, you know, medications, like when to give a medication, when not to give it, like what are we looking for certain things. So I loved that. And then third year, first semester, I did another 4-week placement on a general medical ward and you have a lot more independence. You know, you're obviously followed by your buddy nurse, but you're taking your own patient load because you're preparing because in less than 12 months, you're going to be a real nurse.
And doing it by yourself.
So during this time, you have to really be taking like opportunities to do as many skills as possible. And then at the end of my third year, second semester, I did a 6-week placement all in one go. So that was really hard.
6 weeks unpaid?
Yeah, in one go. So I took time off from work for 6 weeks because, yeah, I'll get into that a bit later. But for 3 weeks, I was on a pediatric ward, which was really cool. It was a great experience to see if I liked pediatrics. But it's funny because I really did think I did want to do pediatrics and work with kids, but I realized it's very hard. Like, you know, they don't want their blood pressure taken or, you know, nothing, you know, they don't want to be touched by you. And it's like, oh, how am I meant to help you? You know, they're constantly crying and it's just hard. I just like it when I come to my adult and I'm like, blood pressure time. And they're like, okay, and give out my arm. And, you know, it's so much easier, but that's obviously for some people. And then 3 weeks on a cardiology and cardiothoracic ward, which was so amazing. I love that. And this placement was basically, I was thinking, I need to do as much as I can because next time I'm at a hospital, I'm going to be a real nurse and there's no one really going to be there following me up and, you know, picking up the little things that I haven't done. So yeah, I loved placement, and, you know, I was able to do placements across the public and private hospitals. So that was another eye-opening experience because they're actually very, very different. And in my own opinion, like, I will only ever work in the public
Really?
system. Yeah, I think there's lots of little nitty-gritty things, but you have less patients, like less patient load in public. So yeah, where I work now, I only have 4 patients, whereas in private you can look after up to 5, which is actually a lot. It's very hard. Also in public you get to wear scrubs, which I love. So it's like those little things. But yeah, that's the good thing about placement is you learn what you want to be involved in, like where you want to work, and that's the best part about it. And everything is allocated through the university. So I didn't have to do one thing. So no choice really which hospitals you're going to, which wards, because there's obviously some specialties. Some of my friends had amazing placements like on neurology wards and looking after stroke patients, whereas I had very sort of basic placements, like lots of general medical wards, and then I was lucky to have, you know, ICU and things like that, and, you know, the cardiac wards. But yeah, it's just basically luck at the end of the day. You know.
So you can't elect, I want to go to a pediatric ward.
No, at ACU you couldn't. I think at some unis you can choose. And I guess at the end of the day you could email them and just say, I'm super interested in this. Like, can you sort of help me out? Which sometimes they can listen to, but it's never guaranteed. So, yeah.
It's actually quite good that you did get aged care, you got a hospital, you got the mental health one as well. So you've got a broad range of public and private places, so that when you do finish your degree, you can think, okay, I've got a broad range of experience. What do I really enjoy the most?
100%.
And so is that on purpose? So you definitely always get a broad range of things to do.
Yeah, most of the time you do. So there's this other thing called clinical schools, which was that I was going to mention now, what I said earlier.
Yep.
But this is something that I actually wasn't aware of when I was applying for unis. So many of the universities are actually partnered up with specific hospitals, which is called clinical schools. Well, it was at ACU, which means that you do most of your placements at that one facility for all 3 years. And sometimes you even do practical classes there. Like I know Deakin, they actually go to like Epworth Hospital and they have their own simulation labs and things like that. So at ACU, the clinical schools included St Vincent's public and private, Cabrini and Werribee private, I think. I didn't apply for these because lots of them were private hospitals, and like thinking back, I could have applied for St V's public because it is a really good hospital. But at the time, because my mum's a nurse, she said to me, you know, it's better just to go out there and get what you're given, sort of thing. And I think in the end I was rewarded with that because I got to see so many different areas, you know, got to experience public and private and all those little things, and I was comfortable with change. Whereas, you know, when you're at that one place, everything's sort of like laid out for you. You know the people, you know like what to sort of expect. So I think it was a good opportunity for me just to test things out. I know at Deakin they have clinical schools with Eastern Health and Epworth. There might be more, but I'm not 100% sure. And then La Trobe has the Alfred, the Austin, the Royal Melbourne Hospital, and I think maybe the Northern. But yeah, so I wish I kind of knew these things before because I live super close to Eastern Health. Like that's my area. So if I went to Deakin, then maybe I would have applied for the clinical school there. But then maybe, you know, I wouldn't end up working where I do now. And similarly, like I think maybe I should have gone to La Trobe because they're partnered up with all these awesome like public hospitals, which I'm, you know, interested in working at. But at the end of the day, I wasn't disadvantaged. You know, I still got into a hospital which I had never ever done a placement at even. So yeah, I think sometimes as students we get really fixated on placements and where it is. I know I did. I would get so nervous because I really, really want a good placement. But at the end of the day, you can end up wherever you still want to end up, you know. It's not, you know, maybe you get more, you know, opportunities and you might get a job, increased chance if you've done placements there, like most likely because the educators already know you and everything. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really impact your ability to get a job.
Absolutely. Great advice. And now what are some top tips for placement and essentially putting the theory, what you learn at uni, into practice?
So one that everyone would hear so much, but ask lots of questions. There's no such thing as a silly question. Like even now as working as a nurse, I ask questions every single day, and sometimes they're silly. I'm asking something that, I'm just double checking, because at the end of the day, you're there to learn. So you need to ask questions, and people that have been working for, 5-10 years plus, they still ask questions. Like, no one is an expert in any field. And when you're on placement, you're there to learn. So you don't want to sit there and not understand, why are we giving, this medication? Why are we checking their heart rate before we're, doing that? It's easier to ask questions, and then you just know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely always tell your buddy nurse, because you're always paired up with someone, because you can't work on your own, obviously.
Like a mentor type of thing.
Yeah, so you're buddied up with a nurse, and you usually follow them around, or, then you'll start to take the reins more, and you'll have your own patient load, and you sort of bounce back on them. But make sure you tell them, like, what year you're in, like what skills you can actually perform, so that you can be proactive with your learning. Sometimes it's hard because they sometimes don't know what year you're in. If you don't tell them and they don't ask, then there's this unknown bubble. Like, well, can you give meds? Can you, give this injection? Like, can you do this dressing? It's better to make everyone aware, so you're all on the same, level. Always ask to observe skills that you can't do because it's not in your scope of practice. And always ask to practice when you can do something and there's an opportunity, because sometimes you won't be able to do it again, and it's a perfect time to learn. It's also really important to build positive relationships with other nurses, because at the end of the day, you need references from your clinical placements. They don't really necessarily care about your job at Macca's. They want to know how you act and how you perform on placement, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going into. You're going into that clinical field, and they want to know how you interact, whether you're safe, and all these things. So, build positive relationships, and, try and make a positive impression on the people around you, because they're the ones that are going to either say hire you or don't hire you,
Exactly.
Yeah, and use your spare time to research medications, health conditions. I bought a little small lined book and just filled out I did A to Z of all the A medication, look it all up, and then all the things you need to know about it, like the indications, how it works, adverse reactions and things like that. And same with conditions, because then you will build on your knowledge, and that's sort of important, because you don't want to be in third year. And, I know people that have nearly failed placement because the educator asked them a question and they don't know a very basic medication. But, you should know that. It's very common medication that you're given everywhere. So if you have that book, you're able to build on that knowledge. And then I always revised it before I went on placement. So I sort of, they don't expect you to know everything on the first day, but there is a expectation that you're progressing,
And you're being proactive about it as well. So you're not just leaving it up to memory, because I understand when you're on placement, you can be nervous and you can forget.
Yeah.
So when you've got it down in the book and you go home and just read it while you're on the train or on the tram to placement, you can be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. It's all good. I remember.
Yes, definitely. So that's super important. And I think my last tip would just be enjoy yourself and enjoy being a student, because I've learnt this year, I've only been working as a nurse for less than 3 months now, that, being a real nurse is actually terrifying at times. I don't think they sort of prepare you enough, because my decisions that I make every day in my job, are impacting somebody's life and their health status. So, enjoy the time when you're watching, you're not the sole responsibility, because a lot happens when you're working, and I think just enjoy it. And, when your buddy says, oh, go home an hour early, at night, just go home, enjoy yourself, because, you'll be going home an hour later when you're really working. So, yeah, just enjoy everything that comes with it.
Absolutely. All right, now tell me about the whole balancing uni, work, social life, but more importantly, balancing not working because placement is unpaid.
Yeah, so during uni, I was very busy. I think that's just how I work. I work well under stress. So I actually worked 2 to 3 jobs consistently during uni. I worked as a waitress. I worked at an ice cream shop. I was a nanny, which was very convenient because you only do short shifts. And I worked as an in-home PCA, which is a personal care assistant, and also as a rousson. So the last 2 jobs are very relatable to the industry. So I ended up quitting all the other jobs throughout, and that's why I've had so many different jobs during the course of the 3 years. But a PCA is a personal care assistant, which is like the perfect job for nursing students. So there's many jobs in aged care facilities. So after you've done your first placement, you can basically just apply, and because you are studying to be a nurse, they usually accept you, and you don't need to do any like certificates or any other separate courses. So this just involves helping like the residents with their day-to-day life. So, helping them with their toileting, showering, dressing, like eating, basically what you would have done on placement. So I didn't do it at an aged care. I did it like in the homes. So the elderly people still lived at home. So I was just sort of supporting them to continue living at home. So I'd sometimes help them with their cooking, showering, like respite, so relieving their family members that are their full-time carers, or just sometimes cleaning, whatever was sort of required. So that was actually pretty good pay. I worked casually for a agency. So that was great experience. And, I think it's really, really good for your resume and makes you really employable because they know that you have the basic skills, under
You've
your
learnt
belt.
it at uni.
Yeah, and then, you've got it as a job and you do it all the time. So then when you apply for, a graduate job, it's, it's fairly, straightforward. There's also a new sort of position called RUSON, which is actually short for a registered undergraduate student of nursing. They also have ones for midwives. I think it's called RUSOM, not RUSON, obviously, M and N. But so during COVID last year, these positions were being advertised at like basically all the hospitals. So at the start, they were sort of worried that, what happens if all these nurses get sick, which we were seeing like in Italy and, obviously now in the US and UK and everything. So they hired these, and I think, they're what they wanted, which is what St. Vincent's Hospital, like my friend worked there. You actually like help the nurses. So she was able to like, once again, do all those showering and toileting, all those little things. But she was able to like do the OBS for patients and, if the nurse needed assistance with something. So you're actually present on the ward and getting paid for it, and that experience like is invaluable. Like I was so jealous that my friend got that job. But she was part of the clinical school with St. V. So that's how she got that job over other people that applied like me. So I was very jealous. But then I ended up getting a RUSON position in August. So a little bit later towards when it was sort of the second wave. And yeah, I thought I'd also be working on the wards, but I was just doing the temperature checking, so the COVID screening at the front door. So it wasn't very stimulating and not really what I had hoped, after seeing what my friend was doing, and like she was like doing such a cool job. So I still learned a lot, interacting with staff and,
But at least you were
patients.
getting paid.
Yeah, it was good. It was very easy. You just sit there, you check temperature, ask the questions. A lot of de-escalation techniques because I tell you, people weren't very nice at times.
Oh my goodness. It was like people management as well.
Yeah, so even though I wasn't directly working on the wards, like all those skills I learned, I was able to like, on my resume, talk about how transferable they are to, the job. So
Absolutely.
I think that these positions were amazing experience and definitely maybe why I got the position at my like job over other people because I have those things. But then again, I do know people that, some of them didn't even work during uni. They're very fortunate and they obviously didn't work as, a PCA or a RUSON and they still got the same job as me. But I think like for me, I was like, well, why don't I increase my chances of getting my dream job? Like I'm just going to try and put myself out there. You learn so much, you get paid for it and, it's a really good stepping stone.
Absolutely. Nearing the end of the degree, what are the next steps to take to become a registered nurse? So how do you apply? How do you get accredited?
Yeah. So becoming a registered nurse is actually fairly straightforward, like considering everything else you go through at uni with all your essays. You apply for your registration through APRA, which is like the registration board for all the doctors and other allied health professions. So you apply with them and you just upload all the evidence that they need and sort of once you've applied, you're sort of pending, just you need a course complete. So once I upload my course complete, I just got my registration so simply, and all the evidence is like, your birth certificate or your license, all those simple things. So that was very good. And But applying for graduate positions is like a very timely process, which actually consumes most of third year. So I started working on my applications like now, last year, you know, even earlier, because you need to apply for 4 hospitals. Well, you can, and you do it through this thing called PMCV, which is the Postgraduate Medical Council of Victoria, which other doctors and things apply through here as well. So this is mostly set up for public hospitals only. There are some like Epworth does it as well, even though they're private, but the little private hospitals actually aren't participating in this PMCV. So the only negatives are if you're an international student or you're from interstate, like you're from New South Wales and you want to apply for a Victorian hospital, you're actually not eligible. So yeah, it's it's unfortunate for the international students especially, because you know, it does narrow down their job prospects. But yeah, so you apply and you reference the universities, kind of like when you preference for your universities.
So kind of like VTAC. You put in 4 preferences of 4 hospitals you want to work at. And then do the results or whatever get released the same time or something?
Yeah, so you put your preferences in, but then you go to the website of the hospital and apply through there. So it's a bit strange. Like the preferencing thing there is more so that, you know, it's done all properly, if that makes sense, because they don't want multiple hospitals giving out multiple offers to, you know, people, and then they only take one and then there's all these other like jobs open. So I think that's what used to happen. You just applied like regular jobs, but this thing sort of helps the hospitals more, if that makes sense. So you apply for it and you know, provide all your usual things like your resume, cover letter, references, academic transcript, anything else they ask for. Then the hospitals will interview you and rank you as well. So they will preference you how they want you.
Wow.
So yeah, it is very competitive, thinking about all the like nursing students in Victoria. Like there's heaps of universities, like, you know, the big ones, and then there's heaps of like little ones that, you know, you don't even hear of. So yeah, you put them 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if your first preference wants you, so let's say, I don't know, Apple Hospital wants me and I put Apple Hospital number 1, then we'll match up. And I don't even know if the other hospitals want me. So I don't know if like Banana, Orange want me because we've matched up. But if my top preference, Apple, doesn't want me and Banana wants me, then I'll get the Banana because that's my second thing. So yeah, you don't really know where you stand at all until you get your, you know, unless you're invited to an interview, you can sort of think, okay, I've made it to the next stage. And then, yeah, you don't know until that day. It's in October. It happens so quickly, and yeah.
So it's like getting your ATAR all over again.
It is.
You're waiting. Do you get a message, a phone call?
Yeah, you get a message, and you get a message, and also like you can open up on the thing. And I remember opening up. I filmed myself, like,
love it,
because I was like, this is a day I'm going to remember forever. I was so like nervous, but excited. So it's a fairly confusing like system. So, you know, if you're still in year 12, then you don't really need to think about that now, and it'll all come with time. But, you know, your university will prep you, and, you know, there's lots of services around that can help you. So yeah, it's amazing. Like now I work at like a major metropolitan public hospital in like Melbourne, which is like very known for their trauma facilities. So it was a very incredibly competitive hospital to get into with 120 positions.
Whoa. And was that your first preference?
Yeah, it was my first preference. So yeah, I was very fortunate to get it. But at the same time, it's not like just luck. You know, once again, it's similar. You have to work hard for it, and then you'll be sort of rewarded for your hard work with all your applications.
I was going to say, did you stand out because you did all those extra work experience and then placement experience, and then you had great references and then you interviewed well? Is that what set you aside?
Yeah, well, I would assume so. And like I also did volunteer work on the side. Like I volunteered weekly at the Royal Children's Hospital. So back when I sort of thought I wanted to do pediatrics, I thought this is an amazing way to sort of get experience. So if you're wanting to do nursing and you're interested in pediatrics, once COVID's sort of over, because I don't think they've got volunteer positions at the moment, apply for the Royal Children's, because, you know, you get to cuddle babies and things like that. And it's only like a 4.5 hour shift once a week. It's super easy, and you get to see how the nurses work and things like that. So that's great. So yeah, I did a bit of volunteering on the side and a few like single events for, you know, various organizations. So I think that's what helps, you know, all these little things that you do during your 3 years. It's not just the content you learn, and it's not even all based on your academic transcript. Like, it's based on who you are and how passionate you are and how like spoken you are, and everything just comes together. They look at so many factors. So once again, if you're not super academic and you don't do super well, like, they know that you're writing essays, and writing an essay doesn't mean you're going to be a good nurse, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's so many different ways to get in, and you know, so many opportunities for nursing, which is, you know, why I went into nursing, you know, because like there's so many career options.
That's my next question. So do you have to just go into a hospital on a ward? Where else can you take the degree?
So yeah, with nursing, like, there's so many opportunities. Like, you can do aged care nursing if you want. You can do GP nursing. So lots of GPs now have nurses, and they sort of come up with plans for your, you know, conditions, or organise appointments, do wound dressing, you know, immunisations, which is a big thing right now. So that community nursing as well. So once patients are discharged from the hospital, they might still need antibiotics or regular wound dressing, or I don't know, other random things that they need. And so you go to their house. So you work for, you know, a Bolton Clark is a really big company, and you work for them, and you drive around in their little Hyundai around Melbourne.
Love it.
And yeah, so there's heaps of ways, and you know, especially mental health nursing, I wouldn't call that general nursing at all. It's not like, you may work on a ward, but it's completely different. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities, and like, even with the programs that you apply for, when you look at the hospitals, you can work, you know, in stroke, cardiology, trauma, plastics, you know, gen med, rehab, ED, theatre. Like, there's just endless opportunities with nursing, which is, you know, why I chose it, because you'll never be bored, and there's so many ways to move around. You can, like, right now I'm sort of at the bottom, you know, just working on the ward, but you can go up, become like the manager of the shift. You can be a manager of a ward. You can become an educator. You can, you know, go on to research. You know, there's so many ways to move around, and depending on your lifestyle, because obviously nursing shift work is not for everyone, but you can get a 9-to-5 nursing job, you know. So yeah, there's heaps of opportunities. So that's awesome.
That's fantastic. And would you ever consider doing more study after uni?
Yes, definitely. I think in the future I will. I'm sort of just figuring out what type of like nursing specialty I want to get into. So at the moment I'm sort of interested in ED, or intensive care nursing. So this often requires like a postgraduate 12-month course sort of thing in critical care. And I sometimes think about becoming an educator, because I obviously really enjoy like teaching. Like, I can't wait until I get my first student. Like, it'll be so exciting. You know, it'd be so fun, because there's some nurses that obviously don't want students, you can tell, but then you get those really awesome ones that want to teach you, and it just like makes it so much better. So
you can give back, I guess. You had educators and you had mentors and buddies, and that will be you one day.
Yeah, 100%. And there's even like opportunities like as a nurse practitioner, which is quite similar to like a doctor in some sense. Like, you have, you know, 15 years experience as a nurse, but you go on and do post-grad and masters and everything, but you can like diagnose conditions, like order diagnostic tests like x-rays and CT scans, like prescribe medications. It's really cool. I met a nurse practitioner when I was on my mental health placement, and yeah, he like can do so many things. It's really, really cool.
There you go. So you're not limited, definitely.
Yeah. And even like opportunities overseas. Like, I know some countries really like Australian nurses. Like, you can work in the UK if you want, like go to Canada. Like, I've even thought about going to the United Arab Emirates, the UAE.
Yep.
Because they used to not have their own nurses because of all their cultural things. I don't know a lot about the country itself, but so they used to hire heaps of Australian nurses to go over there and work. So it's really good pay, because it's tax-free money as well. So that's at the back of my head too in a few years' time. So yeah, I think there's so much, and I feel like I can't really plan what I want to do. You know, something different might happen, you know, next year, 5 years, 10 years. Like, who knows where I'll end up. It's exciting.
It's nice because you do have so many options, so you could take it anywhere, really.
Yeah, it's good.
And I ask everyone this, so I want a quick 5 out of 5. So 5 being absolutely amazing and 1 being not so good, just for the following categories. So first thing that comes to your head, quality of tutors, lecturers, academics at uni.
Probably say a 4 for majority of them.
Cool. Workload,
4.
as in it being doable.
Yeah, I think it's doable. Like I obviously worked like 2 to 3 jobs, you know, I think I didn't touch on it before, but yeah, with the placement aspect and working, like I took heaps of time off for placement, and I think it's just so important because you're so mentally drained after, you know, an 8.5-hour day, and, you know, you're there to learn. So you're like taking in everything. It's a lot. So, you know, I was just very fortunate that I live at home and I don't have heaps of expenses. So I was able to take that time off. But yeah, you definitely need to save money. And, you know, I know there's other mature age students who can't take off time off because they have full-time jobs or part-time jobs. So you've just got to make it work. It's hard, but you've got to prioritize your mental health a lot.
Absolutely. And what about the social life of your course, like making friends, good connections?
I'd say like a 5 definitely, because I made so many good friends during uni who are like now my really, really good friends. And yeah, I think it's just important to go out there and just try and make, you know, friends, talk to anyone. Like I remember I was so goofy. I was just like asking, oh, like, do you want to get a coffee after class?
No,
you
it's
know,
not goofy
like,
at all. That's so good.
Yeah. Like it's important because at the end of the day, they're going to help you so much, like with assignments and with placement and debriefing, like when you're a nurse already, you know, it's just super important to make those friends.
Absolutely. Okay, campus facilities.
4, it's really nice at ACU.
And how well your course has prepared you for now your career as a nurse?
I think a 5.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's good.
So good. And lastly, to end, what's something you wish you knew when you were in year 11 and year 12? And it can be about anything at all.
I would say like just enjoy high school, especially like your senior years, because it goes by so quickly. And like I still think sometimes I miss lunchtime, you know, with all my friends, and just, you know, you'll never get that back again, and you'll never experience anything similar. Like even like uni, it's so different to high school. It's just, yeah, use that all up and savor it. Don't get too stressed about your ATARs either, because there's so many different ways to get into courses. And, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like it's so drilled into year 12 students these days. But like your ATAR does not define you. It doesn't define your abilities, because things happen. Like, you know, think about all the year 12 students last year during COVID, like doing all their online tests, and I don't even really know what really happened for them. But, you know, things happen, and it doesn't define how smart you are, or, you know, whether you're going to be good enough for a certain job in the future or anything. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Such wise words. Well, thank you so much, Milena. I've loved our chat. It's been so insightful because I personally don't know a lot about nursing, but today I've learnt so much. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I had such a good time. It's great. So hopefully this helps you guys, because, yeah, it would have been great to have this podcast back when I was in year 12.
Absolutely. Oh, one last question. If anyone wants to reach out to you, any questions about nursing, about ACU, where can they find you on Instagram?
Well, I do have a little nursing account which I sort of just post about, you know, the course and things like that. So it's at nurse2_mil. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, so you'll be able to find it.
Thank you.
No worries.
If you like this episode or have any more questions, head over to our Instagram at the.studentspace. Now there is a full stop between the and student. And just remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not provide any personal advice. Thank you for all your support, everyone. See you later.